So hi everyone, thank you for joining us today. Thank you, Raj, for speaking today. It's great to have you. So Raj Dham works with Toronto Region Immigrant Employment Council, a not-for-profit with a mission for economic empowerment of new Canadians. As an employer relations manager, Raj works with HR and business teams at mid to large employers in Canada and helps them in diversity and inclusion initiatives with a newcomer inclusion lens. He's passionate about combating unemployment and underemployment that exists within the newcomer community in Canada. Thank you again for speaking today, Raj. It's great to have you.
Thanks, Alex. I'm very happy to be here, and hopefully, in the next 30 minutes, I'll be able to add some value to some of your viewers here in terms of their interviews and job search in Canada. To everybody watching this, hello and welcome to this session. I'm very happy to be here and to be able to talk to you. Setting up a couple of quick ground rules. What I'm trying to do is I'm going to talk for about 15 to 20 minutes and then allow an interaction to happen so I could be able to answer some of your queries. I have a deck, so I'm going to take you through the deck. But meanwhile, if you have any questions, feel free to put it on the chat. And then when we come back at the end of 15, 20 minutes, we can have a conversation and I could probably allow you into this room or answer some of the queries that you have in the chat function here. With that said, let me open up my screen. Hopefully, all of you are able to see my screen now. I'm just giving it a moment for it to load properly on your machines. And now that it probably has, let me just start. So I'm going to talk about what not to do in a Canadian interview and a few things to do. For some of you that might be new to this country, and for some of you that are already been here or have worked in Canadian companies and now probably looking for a career change or looking for a new role, you might find some of these handy. So fundamentally, one of the things that I've seen when we are looking for a job, we are searching for a new job, we're looking for a career change. Sometimes we get a little confused about which are the right sectors or which are the kind of companies that we would want to apply for. We might feel that, well, I've been a salesperson, or I've been a marketer, or I've been a technical manager, and these are my skills, and a bunch of these skills are replicable across multiple industries. So what do I do? So what I'm trying to do now is try and talk to you about what is called the IEP principle in job search. IEP here stands for Ideal Employer Profile. Now, if any of you here have come from sales or marketing, you would know that in sales and marketing, and in generally in business as well, there's this concept of ICP, which is Ideal Customer Profile. So when you make something, you obviously cannot sell it to the whole world. So you try and choose your niche and try and sell it to that. So you basically determine who are the customer sets and what sort of characteristics do they have that make them ideal to buy your product. Similarly, in job search, it's very important that you are able to understand, and when you are marketing yourself, you're able to understand who are the right employers that would be the best fit for your kind of skills and experience, and where you'd find joy and happiness working. So to do that, there are a few steps to follow. Number one is to map out the types and industries and size of those companies that suits you best, you as a person that is looking to get into a job. The reason why this is very important is because you don't want, just like, of course we want a job or we want a career change, but we want to make sure that we are applying to organizations that potentially has some shared values, that potentially has a kind of similar outlook to the world that we have. And of course, in terms of the salaries that you get, the appreciation that you might get, and every other thing that makes the job holistic, you want to do that. Now, everybody's time and resource is finite, right? So when you're doing job search, you're trying to do networking, you're trying to apply for jobs. Now you cannot be you cannot do this in a very meaningful way if you have spread yourself too thin across multiple sectors and industries. So make sure that you kind of look towards a few industries that you feel are the right fit for you, and then align yourself to job search in that industry. Number two is, once you've done that, make a list of 20 to 50 ideal employees in that or those industry. If you've chosen one industry, or you've chosen a couple of industries, then you make sure that you have a list of these ideal employers or organizations that you feel you'd like to work with. And of course, check for shared values. And once you've done these three steps, look at what is typically the hiring process for the function that you want to apply for, irrespective of your level, whether you want to join an entry level, managerial level, senior managerial level, leadership level. Figure out what's the hiring process, and then connect with the key decision makers. Now, how do you connect with them and network with them? You might find them on LinkedIn. You might find them on events such as this, industry events, and being able to generate a conversation with them, to essentially, or rather information interviews with them, to essentially understand what's the best way, and what's the key decision makers in the hiring process that is followed within such industries. For I cannot see people that might have joined this session now, but if you have, I'm talking about interviews in Canada, and if you have any questions, feel free to put that in the chat function, and I'll get to that after I finish this quick deck that I have. So this is the extending this principle. This is my personal belief, and I have, in the last I have moved to Canada, not very long ago. It's just 2.5 years that I'm here in this country, and in my line of work, I've met a lot of newcomers that have come, and this is specific to not really newcomers, but also for people that are looking for jobs. Is that I believe in this approach, because your time is finite. I believe in 1 by 2 or 4 square. And what does that mean? That basically means that you select one sector and two job roles. That's 1 bar 2. So you select, for example, manufacturing or technology, and you say, I can do good in a customer facing role given my skills and experience, and I can do well in sales, or I can do in customer success or customer service. And then you figure out everything around that industry, people, connections, programs that is happening, network your way, apply for jobs effectively. That makes your job search much more effective as compared to just what is called spraying and praying, and just applying in job sites and applying in company websites and hoping that there'll be a call for an interview. The second philosophy is 4 square. Like you see, there are 4 squares here. Just again, example sectors could be manufacturing or not for profit, and there could be two roles. The reason why you see this is important is every time you try to showcase authority or showcase competence, you would be able to do only so much, in the social media, in events, and wherever else, where you are able to talk about your skills and experience, and that is best aligned if you are able to select the job roles and therefore the skills that are necessary, and you showcasing that ability for you to come in the radar of such hiring managers or recruiters in those industries. So that has saved a lot of people a lot of time, and I highly recommend that you do this. This next piece is, do this exercise. This is from a book called The Golden Parachute, and is basically talks about how you can align what is the things. Like when we started this presentation, I said, apply for jobs that suits you best, apply for industries that suits you best. And this exercise, the petal exercise, basically asks you questions like, what is my favorite knowledge of fields of interest, right? What is my preferred salary range? What is my level of responsibility that I like? My preferred places to live, my goals, purpose, and mission in life, and philosophy, my preferred kinds of people that I want to work with. You realize that's very, very critical, for to able to work with people with similar similar mindsets and thoughts in terms of bettering a process or a company or whatever that you have. And that exercise gives you that power to really understand what you bring to table, who you really are, and what sort of jobs would be the best fit for you. Now, coming to interviews, in this is basically a few, I'm putting together a few do's and don'ts here. This might be very simple, but trust me, a lot of people would tend to make these mistakes, right? So what happens here is, number one is, don't be late for a phone or video interview. That really sets up a bad impression at the start. So please don't be late for a video interview. If you need if you got a, for example, a software that the employer had, the prospective employer had sent that you need to download or figure it out, do that ahead of time so that you are ready for the interview when it comes. The second one also happens to it, and this is in the context of some newcomers that might come. Just because you find that some other people in your panel is from your home country, don't switch to your native language. That doesn't work very well. Do not assume, this is very important again. So when you are answering, space out your answers, make sure that, and make, do not assume that the interviewer will extend time. That's what's already communicated in the interview. Even when let's say you're having a great conversation, but what happens is that make sure that you understand the time that is given to you and space out your answers so you're able to effectively communicate what you want to communicate, and still maintain and leave time for some questions to ask and manage it properly. There's another very important thing that I have also seen to happen to again a bunch of people, is that who come from a probably sometimes from a different cultural context, is that do not answer all the questions in a long story format, right? So don't start like storytelling sessions there, that if the question was pertaining to an information that was asked from you, don't start, okay, let me give you an example and this is what happened, and then when go on around that. There are ways to do that, and there are times that you have to do that in a storytelling format, but you have to understand what question is where you should send a story, and what are the questions that you just give out information. So don't do that, because you'll end up taking up a lot of time there. Again, similar to this, do not deviate from the core of the question. If the core of the question was, give me an example of something that you've done, whatever, you have managed a technology, defined a process, made a framework, answer to the point, be precise, and don't extend this to other parts of what the work could have been. Um, Another very important piece is, when you're talking to an interviewer, and there could be a different panel, and panel could be from different people. Don't assume that the interviewer knows all the industry jargons, okay? And specifically, so if that is not a functional domain person, let's say you're talking to the HR team or the recruiter first, don't assume that the recruiter would know all the industry jargons that you come from, and and kind of talk in a simpler language that allows that makes the recruiter understand what you're effectively saying without being too technical there. And this is a very important point. So every time you prepare for an interview, obviously you prepare with a bank of examples that you can kind of punch in different points of the interview. So what's very important in here is to make sure that you have a reasonable depth in your example, so that you don't have to go back to the same example for multiple questions to explain how did that particular job or particular process better. That's very important. So just make sure that you have done your homework, and you've looked at all the other past work that you've done in the previous role, and made small examples of it, and you know in which questions you should be able to figure and fit those examples in. um, Again, last couple of things: do not speak ill of your previous company and or your boss. That sends a bad precedent. And and in Canada, it's very important. Some of us might come from culture where we like to, there's a group sort of kind of a methodology in our work, and it is not so to say, you might come as an outsider if you were going to take, so to say, credit for your kind of work. But in here you have to know which question you should be using that I did it versus we did it. So if for example, in Canada, what happens is that it's expected that you should know a bunch of tools, or resources individually to be able to perform a job better. And while in other countries, or other places, you might have assistance for other people to do that work. But it's important that you know that you have either picked up those tools and technologies and processes and whatever, what have you, and you have done this yourself, and you're able to communicate that you have done it, as compared to a group of team. Because when you say we, then we don't know as a panel what out of that program or the process or the work have you done specifically? Okay, and now moving to do this. As I said, I'll try to keep it within 18 minutes. We are 15 minutes down. This is going to be my last slide, and I'm going to spend the next 10 minutes talking to you and answering any questions that you have, because interviews is a very broad subject and vast subject, and it's very difficult to power in a lot of stuff within 20-30 minutes. So it's probably be better for us to have a conversation and me being able to answer to something to the best of my ability. Um, Coming down to this, these are very important. Research the company that you're applying for and be ready to explain it in 30 seconds. If it's a large company, be ready to explain what the division does within 30 seconds. And that will only happen if you spend at least like 10-15 minutes studying the department or studying the company, the website, and some of the services they do, for you to be able to effectively answer that. Uh, Practice this STAR method, because the only way people can find out whether you will be able to do a job well is by looking back into your past and saying that, have you done this sort of a work in the past? And these are obviously for people that are experienced. But even if you're a fresh out of college, and if you have not done a certain kind of work, it doesn't matter, because there is obviously some precedence in your class work, in your assignments that you've done, in the teamwork that you've done, that you can translate to an actual work and are able to answer that. So there is this method of SPARK. SPARK stands for situation, and then problem, and the action that you've taken, and the results that came out of the action, and finally the knowledge that you gained out of this entire exercise. So you can frame this in a SPARK model, or you can frame this in a STAR model, which is situation, task, action, and results. Either way, these practice is very well, and it kind of it goes very well when you are answering the behavioral questions, where people are asking you, tell me about a time when you showed leadership, tell me about a time you had a conflict with your manager and how did you handle it, tell me about a time when everybody thought something else. And so these are answers that are best given out in a STAR or a SPARK format. But for you to be effective on that, you should have preempted these kind of questions that the interviewer might ask you, and made some stories about or made the story in your head to be able to articulate it effectively without veering away from the core topic or the core question. The third part is research the panel, the person, and the profession. This is very important for us to do. See, when people think of it as buying anything, people often buy emotionally, and they kind of rationally kind of in their heads define it rationally. Same thing also happens for in interviews. So everything become equal. There, the person that could create an emotional connect with the panel, or somebody has a better story, would probably get the job as compared to someone else. So it's important that you're able to research the person. So yeah, somebody might be a vice president of finance in a large bank, but who is this person, right? What kind of interest that the person has? Some of this information you can find from social media channels, for you to connect personally and drop in data points that could connect with this person. Consultant is better than servant. What I mean by that is, when you approach an interview, don't go into a servitude. Yes, that I'm a yes man, and this I can do this kind of a mindset. Go with a consultant sort of a mindset. Think about the fact that if they're hiring for this role, they have a problem in this role. What sort of problem that the company might have or the organization might have, and how you are the best fit for such a solution, and what's the best solution that you bring to table. So when you do that, the demeanor that you have in an interview, be it in person or online, will change. Your confidence will be up, and you know that they deserve to hire you as much as you deserve to work for them. So this is very important from a mindset perspective for you to have when you apply for the job that you really want. The second part is, do some practice. And please keep in mind, I'm saying all of these from a perspective of, again, ideal employers that you really want a job at. You may not do this for a random interview if you're just practicing it and you don't intend to join this company, but just to get some practice. But if you are really applying for an ideal employer that you really want to work with, it's an ideal role, everything is what you want, and then you're appearing for that interview, and you've got shortlisted, and you've crossed the phone interview level, and you move to the in-person interview, or online, in this case video interview. At that time, make sure that you're prepared enough so that you don't technically blow that, right? And so you feel bad about yourself later on that I should have prepared hard. So this is very important. Most of behavioral questions are predictable. You can find that if you read a job description, you'll be able to figure out what sort of behavioral questions can probably be asked. And for that, if you can kind of preempt that and write it, you'll be in a much more comfortable space than to have been thinking from your feet when a question is thrown at you. And that's obviously is never a good idea. Um, and then create an example back to plug and play, that small little stories and nuggets which you can plug and play. And if you do the practice, you will know how to plug those examples in. And wherever you can, try to create an emotional response in the panel. When I say emotional response, what it basically means, it could be a personal story, it could be an impact story, it could be a social story, but an interview, just because of your technical knowledge or because of the data that you present or your confidence or your communication skills, you'll be able to just float them. Yes, all of these matter and very important, but it's also important that you're able to bring in a little bit of emotion in that entire conversation. Now, to that extent, also in the interview, if you're able to figure out who are your champions, right? Who are neutrals and who are landmines. So let's say there are 3% probability, could be that one person is neutral, the other person doesn't want you, and there's another person that really likes you and wants you, right? So if you can figure that out, and you will know that from the way the interview is going, people nodding their heads, their body language. Some of it you can still figure on even online on a video interview, and then you are able to then follow up effectively when you send a thank you mail, when you send a LinkedIn invite, post the interview. That could help you in identifying your champions, because they are the ones, when the final decision comes, they are the ones that are going to stand for you and effectively probably tell the rest of the crowd that why you deserve to be in that role and not a competition. So this is about it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to open to questions. As I said, I am done good time, 15-20 minutes. We have 8 minutes for us to answer a question. What I'm going to do is you can connect with me and on either rdam@triec.ca, or you can find me on LinkedIn. Just type Raj Dam and you can find me. For now, I'm stopping the sharing, and I'm going back to this group. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to take that. You can put it on the chat, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have. Or you can join this meeting as well, I guess. I don't need to give you permission of what I've heard. You can try and join and we can have a conversation. No, if there are no questions, yeah. So Alex has been sending, if you want to join me in this conversation, you have to click the share audio and video button in the top left, and then you can join this conversation. Or top right, rather, not top left. Okay, I don't think we have anybody that has questions, but thank you again for being part of this session today. It was great to be able to speak to you, and hopefully there are some thoughts from here that you could probably use in your interviews and job search. As I said, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn, and I'll be happy to assist in whatever best I can. Thank you, Have a good one.
Hi, Raj. I just want to come back on and say thanks again for presenting. It was really great. It's unfortunate that there's no questions. If there is, I know there is some people watching still, so if you do have any questions, please feel free to put them in chat. I know you mentioned that they can contact you on LinkedIn. Do you want to just maybe put the links for how they can contact you in the chat?
Yeah, so I will try. Here you go. This is me.
Okay, great. Perfect. And is that the best way to reach you, through LinkedIn, or is there email? Or...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, if they want to still email me, this is my email ID.
Okay, great.
As well, just in case if anybody wants to reach out.
Awesome. And so, yeah, if anyone has any questions, please feel free to put them in chat. But I just want to say thanks again. It was really interesting presentation that you gave. And we definitely love to have you back again in the future.
Thank you. Thank you, Alex. Have a good one.
You too.
Bye-bye now.